So good morning, everybody. It is just gone past, so we will start the meeting. Welcome to our meeting this morning. I am not aware that there are any fire evacuation procedures, so we will not be calling those out. Are there any information that we need to give out at this moment in time? No, okay then, thank you. So have everybody got documents that they can refer to? Does anybody need any documents, or have we all got the documents? Thank you very much. So, welcome to everybody and welcome to some new faces. I hope you enjoy the meeting. Welcome. So we will actually move on to item 1, which is apologies for absence.
Thanks, Chair, and good morning, everyone. So apologies for absence this morning from Councillor Steve Watson with Councillor Alison Baker, hopefully turn up as name sub. I've also had apologies this morning from Councillor Jane Burton with Councillor Rachel Millie as the name sub.
So item 2, this is to look at the meeting of our minutes, which was on the 18th of December. These are just for accuracy, so thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, there's always a trade-off in minutes between the level of detail and the level of accuracy, but I am concerned in terms of the question and answer sessions and questions where we ask on report, that actually some of the specific questions that are being asked do not come out clearly in the minutes. I think that's quite essential in the sense of being seen to hold the mayor to account in that section, but also in terms of being seen to properly explore the contents of reports that we receive. So I'd ask if these minutes can be re-looked at. I have some specific points rather than bog the meeting down with that.
Yeah.
I think they could be, if the points taken, and if they could be re-looked, and I'll raise my specific points.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, Alison. Do take a seat. Thank you for those points, Councillor Merritt. They have been noted, and we will look into them. So we do need to vote.
So I think what Councillor Merritt's asking is that we go away, have a look at these again and bring them back to the next meeting.
Yeah, they've been noted. Thank you very much. So I would just like that, obviously our chair is outstanding. So since the last meeting, we've had 2 Teams meetings, and thank you for those members who jumped onto those Teams meeting. We had a meeting regarding the budget on the 26th of January and a meeting on the 5th of March regarding the housing. And very busy. So the more of you could jump onto the meetings, it would be absolutely wonderful. On the back of those Teams meeting, especially the budget meeting, I took a report to the Combined Authority on the 27th of February, where it was received well from Mayor's. I hope it was received well. Seems to be received well. So I just wanted to update you on what's been in the background. Thank you very much. So let's move on to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest, please? No? Yes, I see one.
Sorry, just
hand from Councillor Merritt.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I just refer to, as a non-pecuniary interest, my membership of the York Bus Forum, which represents York bus users in the York area. And obviously there are some bus-related issues on the agenda. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Merritt. Councillor Waller.
Thank you, Chair. It is on the declaration of interest, but I remind that I am a governor at Westfield Primary School and at York High School, which is pertinent to a question I hope to raise to the Mayor.
I'll stop turning that on. So thank you very much. We have no public participation this morning, so we'll move on from that. Thank you very much. So we're over to the Mayor's update. So welcome, Mayor Scaife. We're pleased to see you again, and it's over to you. Thank you.
Always pleased to be here, Chair, as well, and thank you for representation at the last Combine Authority meeting as well. Much appreciated to see the work that the group is doing to scrutinise, hold it to account, and obviously also to support the work that we're trying to do, because we're all in this together. So I hope you've received the update that was sent through just before the papers went out. I won't obviously run through that in detail because you've got that in written form, but just to pick up a couple of bits, if I may. I know it's been raised previously around transparency, so just to let you know that all expenses, register of gifts, hospitality and record of external meetings is all now live. You can go and see that, and my head of office and advisor also decided to publish this information for themselves as well, which they don't have to do, but they've chosen to do this as well. And we obviously recognise the need to be as transparent as possible as an organisation. So it's something that we're always looking to do, which is why I do this meeting, and it's why we are looking to see how as an organisation we can be much more transparent as well. Just touching on some of the community work I've been involved in. So the investment into movement activity and sport, the mental health and the High Street Fund. The movement activity and sport fund in particular has been incredibly well received. The first round of applications for that will be going out in the next week or two. So that's been incredibly well supported. The mental health fund as well has been incredibly well engaged with also. Something like 3 or 4 times the amount of money we've actually got, we've actually had applications in for, which is good and bad, I suppose, in a way. And the High Street Fund as well, we are just going out for the final round. Round 3 will be announced quite soon as well. And again, there's some fantastic projects in there, really covering the whole region. I think we've touched on it previously before, the work we're doing around community wealth building and the commission that we have working on that currently. They're due to conclude their work at the end of this month, end of March. And that's exploring how we can improve participation in local economy, improving the working conditions, worker ownership, community ownership of assets, and better utilising existing community networks. So again, really tap into what's already going on, but how we can improve that working as well. Just want to say the expertise we've got around that board from the University of York and other participations has been incredible to see. And again, it goes to show the partnership working that we're trying to utilise for the Combine Authority. That microphone's gone off.
Just to say, children's fields in the mics, so I'm using a backup as well.
Yeah,
but they might switch off for some reason.
okay, I'll go up to that one. Okay. On the Northern Growth Corridor, which was an announcement at the start of the year, I believe it was now, York included in that piece of work, which is brilliant, and it wouldn't have happened without having a mayor and a combined authority. So it's brilliant to be included in that, and there'll be more announcements on that in the coming future. Northern Powerhouse Rail, which was the really big piece of work that South and West Yorkshire mayors, along myself, have been working on that plan around White Rose Rail, and the work that we've done in particular is getting York and the wider area into the Northern Powerhouse Rail announcement, which is brilliant to see. So connecting up our major cities, but also strengthening the case for our local rail priorities, for example, Haxby and 2 trains per hour, and how the wider benefits of rail is so important to our region. The really positive one about that as well is North East being heavily involved in that, which might not sound like it's going to have such a direct impact on us, but obviously really will, because York is the real epicentre of all that connectivity. So not just the east-west connectivity, but south and up into the northeast. So anything that's happening up in the northeast in terms of rail is going to have to come through York. So that's a really exciting opportunity there as well. We held our growth summit last month. I think it was now over 1,000 members from industry and government and local leaders came to that event, setting out our plan for the next 10 years and our 10-year ambition for growth in the region, looking at increasing GDP, boosting wages, 20,000 more people engaging to work, and supporting businesses to start up and spin out. Something that we have an incredibly large amount of in our region is very small micro businesses and that sort of startup incubator. But what everywhere struggles is how you then take those onto that next level. So a really big focus on that as well. And around our housing challenges of needing to build 60,000 homes over the next 10 years, with 25,000 of those, which is about 40% as genuinely affordable. And again, I've presented to this board in the past, and everyone sat around this table knows the lack of affordable homes is the thing that really holds back a lot of our communities. Also representing the region, so we've had a mayoral council, and we've got a mayor's council this Thursday as well. We've had the Great North meeting, so that's all the northern mayors and planning how we're going to work more strongly together. I left the county, if everyone's okay with that. I went to a place called Oxford to go to the Oxford Farming Conference, which was great to showcase the work that we're doing, particularly around food and farming, and the farming report that we conducted last year, and the cluster that we're developing in the north with the Tees Valley Command Authority and the university links around there about our strength and opportunities about working collectively there. I also convened a faith leaders roundtable with my deputy mayor Joe Coles, bringing both York and North Yorkshire leaders together to see how we can best place to support them, particularly around community cohesion and a lot of tension that we've seen throughout the region as well. And Tracy, Mayor Braben, sorry, I should call her, signed the White Rose Forest launch as well. So our ambition to plant a lot of trees across Yorkshire over the coming few years as well. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a brief update for me.
Thank you, Mayor Scaife. As always, you've been very, very busy, but I would like to open it to our members to ask questions. Members, please could I ask you, because I'm hoping that everyone can have chance, and we've only got 45 minutes left. I'd like everyone to have a chance to ask questions. So maybe if we could have one question at a time, and then we can, if there's any more time, we can have another question. So Councillor Stewart, thank you. Councillor Waller, thank you.
It's just because it's literally on the last thing you said, Mayor. On the amount of trees that are going to be planted, which obviously is a lovely vast number or a number of hectares in the latest report, that's for the next 12 years. How many of those hectares of trees do you think will be in place, planted by election day?
Well, I planted 6 myself, so there'll be at least 6. I don't have that exact figure, but yeah, trees. But I'll be able to get a more detailed figure. It's us. We're not necessarily leading on it. We're working with the White Rose Forest and other partners to actually basically, they've done the planning, we're supporting it. So I can get further details into what their timeframes are looking like, if you like. But if you would like to volunteer to do some plant tree, there is.
Thank you. I've got.
This Saturday.
There you go. Wonderful.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Waller, please.
Thank you. Mayor, I'd just like to ask if you could share the correspondence that schools should have received in terms of the funding that's been publicly made available for school routes, because I checked with 2 schools and they hadn't received it. And these are schools where there are ongoing issues, and I'm sure across the whole of York and North Yorkshire there are ongoing issues with areas in front of schools at drop off and pick up times, and in terms of making things less hazardous for cyclists, ensuring that your pothole filling money gets through, it's utterly vital. It is getting very hazardous cycling in the city now.
Yeah, sure, I can follow that up. Just so you know, at the next Combined Authority meeting, which is the end of the month as well, we'll be having an announcement into pothole maintenance improvements and wider piece around active travel and how all that links in together as well. So we have to see the full papers will be 8 days before, so they'll be next week, and then at the Combined Authority meeting you'll see where and how that money is going to be spent. Back and follow up on your specific point around the school.
Thank you, Councillor Williams.
Yes, morning, David. It's that item that I want to carry on questioning on. You reference on page 14 the fact that the DFT have devolved £456.2 million, which I understand is an increase on previous allocation. I'd be grateful if you could confirm that it would be your intention to passport that to the constituent bodies in the same manner that the DFT identify that it should be allocated, namely 92.7 pence in every pound to North Yorkshire and 7.3 pence in every pound to the City of York.
Very good question, thank you. So we're currently working on the new formula as it stands, because what we've been asked by DfT is to basically not do things how they were previously, have to do things better and do things improvements as well. And obviously we're also taking consideration not only the length of mileage of road, but also much more emphasis on the amount of vehicle usage on said road as well. So we're exploring all alternatives at the minute. Also, a big focus for us is not just on pothole filling, which is obviously incredibly important, and regardless of what the formula is, both York and North Yorkshire will see record amounts of investment over the next 4 years, more money than each authority has ever received in terms of road maintenance and improvements. At the same time, we'll also put in a large emphasis on active travel improvements and road safety as well. Something that I know Joe Coles and I take incredibly seriously is the fact that nearly 400 people have lost their lives on roads in York and North Yorkshire over the last 10 years, as well as over 2,000 serious incidents. And I cannot sit here with an opportunity to improve those stats, bring those serious accidents and deaths down, and having responsibility now and having the opportunity to actually invest in that. That's something I will be doing. So the formula may change. We're still working on that right now. But either way, both York and North Yorkshire will see more money than you've ever had.
Sorry, can I come back? Because my understanding is that actually this coming year, without consultation, you're actually planning to significantly reduce the amount of funding that will be available to North Yorkshire Council. So that in actual fact, the DfT are recommending that over £59 million should be coming directly to North Yorkshire Council, and it has gone for a capital programme on that basis. And your current draft proposals indicate that the authority will get £52 million. So it will actually have to cut £7 million worth of planned highway maintenance works if you carry on with your current proposals, which will be deeply damaging to North Yorkshire. And there's nothing more dangerous to a cyclist than a pothole in the road, quite frankly. I'm confused as to why you believe that you know better than the DfT does in terms of the allocation of resources, which has been an approved formula, which has been applied consistently for years. And now we seem to have Dick Turpin reinvented and a new highway robber taking funds from North Yorkshire.
Thank you.
First and foremost, if you can keep your answers professional, please. I don't like to refer to as Dick Turpin. Proposal.
Gentlemen, please.
I won't speak to you like that. Don't speak to me like that.
Gentlemen, thank you.
As I said, either way, you'll be getting more money than you've ever had. You've got a 4-year settlement, which means you can actually plan your work. And it also needs to be emphasised that 2 of the last 5 years, North Yorkshire have actually underspent on their highways funding. And we are working with DfT, and DfT have said to us that it's no longer local authority money, it's combined authority mayoral funding, and we have a duty to actually do things differently and explore different alternatives to deliver it.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Merritt now. Thank you. I've got Councillor Fisher. Don't worry.
Thank you very much. Obviously, very much welcome what you're saying here about the local growth fund and the very welcome government investment into improving our economy. This morning's Financial Times referred to the government putting a very heavy emphasis on the Oxford-Cambridge, what they regard as the potential Silicon Valley. Are the Northern Mayors, including yourself, working together to see if we can find equivalent offers in terms of attracting more investment to the north in these emerging areas?
Yeah, so it's something that particularly Mayor Houchin and I have tried to create that link, and we are in that process of doing. We have a huge opportunity around the bio sector. Something like 96% of products that we use are from fossil fuels and other sources. What we are incredibly good at is around the R&D and research development around that area, and with the Tees Valley links as well and their history around heavy industry, we've got an opportunity to link in with the Tees Valley to do that kind of work as well, which has been really well received. I met with Lord Valence in London a couple of weeks ago, alongside the University of York, alongside Mayor Houchin and other leaders in that area. to essentially showcase that work that we're doing on there, and it's been incredibly well received. Also, as Northern mayors, we have the Great North Pact, which again is not only looking at the opportunities we have around economic growth, but the imperative around transport investment and housing investment as well, because growth is one thing, but we need the transport and the housing to go alongside it as well. And again, that's been well received, rather than us waiting for handouts from government, actually presenting what our strengths are, which again is why Mayor Braben and Mayor Coppard and I have the White Rose partnership, which is to why I firmly believe that we are part of the NPR and the Northern Growth Corridor because of our work we've done around there. But then if you see the history and the investment that the Northwest has had through Mayor Braben, Mayor Burnham and Steve Rotherham over there, that connect up, join up working is why they've seen the investment, frankly. So the South West Yorkshire Mayor, myself, that's where we're trying to lead from that as well. And I think that's why the NPR has been successful, but also that growth corridor. That said, particularly in Yorkshire, it's not losing our unique opportunities that we have in York and North Yorkshire, particularly around agriculture, food and farming, rail innovation, which is some of our real strengths, but understanding that our partnership work and our joint up approach is how we're going to get the investment into an area like ours. So yes, it is something that we are always engaging on, but undoubtedly so that Oxford Cambridge arc, sorry, is incredibly powerful, because you join up two incredibly important economic growth areas, and we want to show the same in our work, particularly say linking up York, Leeds and Sheffield as an example.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Fisher now, Councillor Baston waiting, and Councillor Haslem waiting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be civil as I can, promise you. In the next item, we're looking at the route to net zero carbon and the route to negative carbon. One of the biggest problems that's identified is basically the poor new build standards on houses. And one of our ambitions is to design and build homes to new high standards. I sit on York's Planning Committee, and the number of times I have said to developers, are you putting air source heat pumps and solar panels on? And it's normally the volume builders who say, no, it's too expensive, it'll make the houses too expensive. Obviously, that's offset by the reduction in costs of running the houses. Have you spoken to the minister? Because obviously you're a mayor, you have the ear of the ministers. Have you spoken to the ministers about reforming planning law and building control standards to force builders to put energy saving appliances like air source heat pumps and solar panels on new builds as a matter of course? Because it's very expensive to retrofit a house once it's been fitted out with a gas boiler and gas radiators. It's much cheaper to do it right at the start. So have you spoken to them? Or if not, could you possibly press that message, please?
Yeah, for once, I'm in full agreement. I think I don't see why we don't do it as a point of course from the start, as you say, to the actually cost to retrofit in, and let's be honest, you're going to be doing it in 5 or 10 years. It just seems a complete waste. Just saying that we have done proactively is we have the first, well, outside of London, the first Affordable Home Standard Act, which we've signed with the registered partners at housing partnerships, and that's to have that emphasis on not just the energy efficiency of the affordable homes, but the quality of them as well. For example, we know a lot of registered providers are taking on homes where it says it's a 3-bedroom house, but the 3rd bedroom, for example, is a tiny box, and then they're having to spend a lot of money of their own to then get that house to standard. So we've got that affordable home standard, and it does have that emphasis on the energy efficiency of homes, because you said, it's cheaper to do it in the first, but as compared to retrofitting, but then the cost of living in that home. So one of the housing projects we funded was in Bedale. I think it was Bedale and Rascal, I think it was Bedale. And that was the emphasis on the quality of those homes, meant that the energy efficiency of it meant that to actually live in that home, because one thing being able to afford to live in a home, it's another being able to rent it, meant the cost of running that house was something like £100. It's so incredibly cheap. It's something we have raised, probably not in official capacity as firm as that, but it's something I can certainly take away. We are working with government right now about looking with our LEAP project that we have and our EGAP project that we're also funded, about looking at the opportunities around rooftop solar on more of our industrial buildings, car parks, park and rides, this sort of thing, but having an emphasis on the houses is something that we do need to push more. So it is so I can take away.
Thank you for that answer.
Councillor Basterman, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your update, and I welcome your comments on road safety. And as you'd expect, I will bang on about the A64. Admittedly, our way is England, but anything you can do with the A64 to alleviate the problems there. However, following on from Councillor Williams' comments about topslation, not his other comments, to be assured. It is difficult to plan ahead though, if the money is going to be topsliced, you know, whilst you're working up a new formula. That's fair enough, but as long as everybody knows what's happening, the money's going to be there before the new formula kicks in. Thumbs up.
Yeah, and again, just to emphasise, I'll take the A64 second. It wouldn't be a meeting that I go into and we're not raising the A64. But our plan with that as well is also to have that long-term funding, because currently it's year on year. So you're going to go up to 29-30 what funding you've got. For me, that makes it much easier to plan, rather than being year on year, not knowing what you're getting. And if you look at the funding that both York and North Yorkshire had over the years, it has kind of gone up and down, up and down, up and down. This is going up and up to 29-30. So it's going to be the record amount you're ever going to have, but also you know what you're going to have to play for 4 years. So it's going to make it much easier. A64, same as always. We are pushing it. It's something that we've raised all the time. If we had the funding, we would go and do it. But we are questioning the importance of it. But I say it's outside of my hands, unfortunately.
Thank you. Councillor Haslam. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Mayor Scaife, congratulations on co-chair for Transport for the North. And just in case it should need to be on the declaration, I'm chair of Scrutiny for the Transport for the North. The North generates around 425 billion each year for the UK economy, but our productivity is way behind the South East still by about 15 to 20,000 pounds per worker. Across roughly 8 million workers, closing the gap completely would represent an economic prize of 100 billion. Even just closing that 10% of the gap would add more than 13 billion annually to the UK economy. Transport for the North was created to provide a shared strategic voice on infrastructure and connectivity that underpin that wider economic potential. So I'm concerned that the power that is now being vested in the mayors is perhaps going to miss some of that joined up opportunity. So my question is, or my comment is that as the new co-chair, I would value you to take those comments into account. I can send a copy if it helps. On the meantime, as you have this massive budget, I would like to put a plea in for a train station at Claro Road that would be busier than Haxby, just based on the current population. So, and that would be a really quick win. Thank you.
Councillor Haslam, you should know better than to say there are quick wins in transport. And if I'd realised that you were sitting on Scrutiny, I might not have been so forthcoming and been co-chair of Transport for the North. But I think the huge potential of Transport in the North is actually to bring all that together. You'll know that Transport for the North does have that engagement with government, which is very, very powerful. That's not something that we can lose. We have organisations such as the Great North, but really that's just the mayors coming together. There's no like official status and engagement with government, whereas TFN, so I keep calling it TFN has that, and the opportunity to bring all those organisations together, reimagine what TFN going forward is going to be. Obviously, with GBR and everything else coming through, we need to understand what the role of Transport of the North is going forward. But my want from it, and having the meeting that I was signed in yesterday, was the opportunity to add actually much more gravitas around that, and not just talking about transport, but what transport does to unlock everything else, and actually the economic growth, the opportunities to house and everything else, but also now having two chairs of it who don't represent directly one of the traditional core cities of the Manchester, Liverpool, actually having that wider voice of the rural and coastal communities as well, which that growth you talk about there, the opportunity that we have, particularly in rural communities for growth, is completely untapped. And that's an opportunity that we have now. With having devolution, with having our growth plan, we'll also be able to highlight those opportunities. But again, it does come back to getting those structures in place versus the transport and the housing. The team have started to look at Harrogate Clare Road Station, what that would look like. It's very high level at the minute, just to explore. So I think we spoke about last time about what was the process that Haxby went on to get to that point, and now is the same opportunity with Harrogate as well. So that is on our radar as well.
Thank you, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Now, well, I hope this is something of a quick win, and this is the Brownfield Housing Programme. The 50% are affordable. Can you tell me how many are for rent and how many are for discount sale?
Of the homes that we've already funded,
The ones you funded and what the projections are?
I don't have the full worked up details, but I can get those through to you. But just to emphasise that round three, sorry, of the brownfield housing that I was in part of, 100% of those are for affordable and social homes. I don't have the breakdown of those within those, but I can get those to you. The first round, which was designed before I came in as mayor, wasn't 100% affordable. I think it was more like 40-50%, but I can get those numbers through to you if you like as well. Thank you very much.
A question from me, Mayor Scaife. Could you update us regarding the trains from York to Scarborough? Thank you.
One of my favourite things, as you'll know, Chair. Yeah, we are pressing this all the time. We're always engaging with government ministers and advisors on this. Laid out the business case for it as well. Obviously, the development opportunity along that line, as you all well know, in terms of Malton, Seymour, Scarborough as well. And I think our strength of being in part of the NPR and that joint-up approach of that rail connectivity now really strengthens that argument then to take it from York out to the coast as well. So we are pressing. I don't have any firm update as a decision on it, but just to have you know that it's a weekly discussion on the importance and imperative of it. But just coming back to one of the points raised before, it's not just about the connectivity, it's what that connectivity will offer in terms of the growth and the opportunity in the housing and all that as well. And it brings, so it's not just we want 2 trains now for the sake of it, it's what that will do for all those developments along there. And knowing that's coming, traditionally, again, just touching back on the strength of the Northwest, is a lot of when they've had announcements, it's been 10 years, what they've seen is the development and the investment has come because they know that's happening, development like that. So if we know this is coming, then bring investment and developers along board, knowing that this connectivity is coming, then they want to come in behind it. So it will send a really strong message, but it is a weekly engagement as we speak.
That's good to hear that it's on your radar, and obviously the added benefits are going to be huge if we could get that train to come faster down that track. Okay, so we've reached the point that the people who've indicated have all asked a question. Are there any members who haven't spoken who would like to? Because I'm going to go for second questions. So Councillor Waller, you've spoken. So hang on, Councillor Waller. I've got Councillor Merritt and I've got Councillor Stewart and then I've got Councillor Waller. Thank you. Second questions. All right, sorry, I didn't see you there. I'm really sorry. I just didn't catch your eye.
Thank you. Yeah, Mayor, you did briefly mention road safety and encouraging walking and cycling. I was just wondering if you could maybe expand on that a bit, because it is a really big issue and you only briefly mentioned it. I think one of the main reasons why people don't walk or cycle as much as they'd like to is road safety. That actually it's no matter what mode of transport people use, they need to be safe on the road. So I was just wondering if you could tell us more about what you're doing about that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so obviously you'll know that we have the active travel fund that we announced. There was £4 million funding alongside having an active travel commissioner in Rhiannon, who has been brilliant actually. Last week, a big part of what we want to do with the fund is, as you said there, it's about safety, but it's as much as people feeling safe when it comes to active travel as well. And so £1 million of the fund has actually gone to community groups and organisations who are really embedded in our communities, who really speak for our communities and what they want. So, for example, the community group based at Oakland School in Harrogate, who have done a school street there, and it's been incredibly successful. And I've been able to visit that a couple of times, and you see the engagement of hundreds of young people walking with and cycling every day because they have the structure in place. So it is now safer to do so. And they've seen, attainment improved and all this sort of stuff. So it is about walking with cycling and being much more sustainable, but then there's knock-on benefits as well. We're also at the end of the month at the Combined Authority, we'll be announcing further investment into road safety, not just active travel, but also into the potential of wider safety pieces as well on our roads. As we touched on before, nearly 400 people died on our roads over the last 10 years and over 2,000 serious incidents. And that is, we are unfortunately a real outlier in this as a region. I've done a huge amount of work with engagement along with Joe Coles, as with parish councils and local organisations. We've written to every school in North Yorkshire as well to showcase this is what we want to do, and the relentless feedback and engagement from organisations is we want this, we want our roads safe, we want speed slowing down, we want to be able to move around our region much more safely as well. So the proposal that I'm sending through next week to the Combined Authority, hopefully, is not only record investment into road maintenance, road improvements, but also interactive travel and into the safety element as well. I think we can do it all, and I think we have a duty of care to do it all. Because yes, we do need to maintain our roads and make sure they are fit for purpose, absolutely. But we also need to be looking at all this as well, and we have the opportunity to be able to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I was sorry I missed your visit to my division in North Yorkshire, but I'm very pleased that you were able to contribute to the Thorntley Moor Cricket Club, which I have contributed to in the past. Thank you very much.
It was an absolute pleasure to say it was one of our community building projects, I believe it was. I think that's just a great way of how we've been able to invest in our wider community across the region. And I did play cricket there about 25 years ago as well, so it's always nice to go back. But again, it just shows that actually how our sports clubs, our community buildings, you know, our village halls, everything are really at the heart of the community. And a lot of time, you know, if you go to any town, village in our patch, there's always a cricket club or a village hall or a rugby club or a football club, and it is more than just a sports club, isn't it? It actually brings that whole community together. So it's just a really great example actually of that community coming together and knowing what they want as well.
So
You can come back. Yes.
Yeah, yes, and of course it's very important to that community because they don't actually have a village hall.
Thank you. So we're going for second questions. I've got Councillor Merritt, Councillor Stewart and Councillor Waller. Thank you, Councillor Merritt.
Welcome the comments in your report on the overnight visitor levy. And obviously there were a number of questions at the previous scrutiny committee on this. Can I ask if the authorities put in a submission to the consultation? I couldn't actually find it when I tried to look on the website. Can I ask if that reflected some of the concerns that were raised at the last meeting, including the issue about some portion of the levy going to the individual local authorities in the region to help offset the impact of tourism on the place and other council services, and the fact that they're very overstretched at the moment and not necessarily of the right quality to provide the level of service that we would like visitors to see in the region. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll be able to get a copy of it over to you, and just so you know, this is a very live debate. Could call it at the minute. Obviously, we don't know what the legislation would look like at all at the minute. The national consultation on the overnight levy, I think, finished mid-February. We think maybe about September, October time we'll get the findings from government, and then that will potentially set out, if it's something that we can implement, what the legislation and what the limitations are. I'm having a lot of lively debates, shall we call it, with different hospitality sectors and organisations to understand what their fears maybe around, but what the opportunities are. But then on the other side of it, as you said, the impact that tourism and hospitality, which is incredibly important for our region, does have a impact on local authorities and our communities. That's why an emphasis on actually how we can support local authorities and communities with an overnight levy as well. So yes, driving investment into the sector, but actually how it's best placed then to support our communities as well, and an opportunity for us in our region. Just so you know, York St John University are conducting a piece of work as well, which is not just looking at the positives of it, but also the potential negatives and knock-ons, for example. And that piece of work, I think, will be done about the next month or so. It might be an opportunity to present that to the committee as well, if you'd like to see that. But that's really looking at if something like, as an example, if we implemented an overnight levy in York and North Yorkshire, but West Yorkshire didn't, what would maybe the implications of that, for example? What's the implications of secondary spend if you had an overnight levy, for example? Understanding the unique challenges of our region in terms of the geography, so how it would support things like campsites and everything else. So that's a piece of work that is being conducted as we speak. The challenge is there hasn't been many overnight levies conducted or delivered in a rural area like ours before. So they're incredibly commonplace in Europe. Obviously in Venice, I think you pay €5 to even enter Venice now. Obviously we have one in Edinburgh. Obviously in places like New York, it's incredibly expensive in New York, as I found out not too long ago. But again, it's understanding what the positives and what the negatives are and how we can mitigate that. But the current findings is if it's implemented, keep it really, really simple. That's kind of the feedback from Airbnb and other organisations that we have been engaging with.
Thank you. Stuart?
Thank you. Yeah, just on the cricket point, maybe it's one of those sort of soft power type of things, which is that obviously you'll be aware that Yorkshire Cricket Club gets ridiculed as Leeds Cricket Club and everything like that. And all the sort of feedback I seem to get from people is that the players are not good at coming out to the grounds. I don't know if there's anything you can do sort of with Yorkshire in terms of, you know, getting the players to be a bit better at going out and about with grounds. So maybe that's just something to take away. If that's doable, great. My question is basically just obviously you've got the high street and then you've got the housing and regeneration. Regенeration's clear on brownfield sites. Is there any potential for you in terms of looking at potentially getting more residential above city centres? Obviously, most relevantly in York, where we're always talking about how we go better to get more people in. There are some genuine obstacles, or are those sites too micro for any, you know, to interest you, or is it something that's potential?
It's something that we're looking at the wider plan as well about not only above residential property, but also what both local authorities own as property as well that is potentially empty and not being used as well, if there's a potential around that. So everything is on the table in terms of housing. So, you know, I would say that one of the best ways to rejuvenate a high street is actually have more people living on your high street. So that's something we're exploring. It is a lot more complicated, technical around access, around planning, around heritage, all this sort of stuff. It is a lot more technical, as you will probably be aware, but it's something we're exploring, and that's why we want that blended approach of how we can improve the opportunity around using resi space and looking at what both local authorities own as well. Obviously, in North Yorkshire, went through the whole regrouping of the council. I can't remember what the term is now. But obviously understanding what assets they have that they no longer need and how we can develop those as well. So all that is on the table and is something we're exploring. On the cricket, absolutely. So I met with Yorkshire Cricket Club just a few weeks ago and how we can work with them to improve not only the game of cricket in York and North Yorkshire, how we can get that better engagement. So obviously they already have 10 or 11 days cricket they play at Scarborough. They are playing 2 or 3 games at York now, which they absolutely love being at York actually. And we're looking at how we can get more of the men's and the, oh, is it 4 now? Could be, but how we can get the men's and the women's game, and they're really keen to get the men's and women's game out into the region as well. And we're looking to explore them how we can just engage more cricket into our state schools and into our clubs as well, and particularly men's and women's games. So I think they're exploring with the women's game is a softball league, which I think they're playing on a Friday night. So we're looking how we can explore that and get that out into the region as well. But all that kind of on the table. Any opportunity to improve cricket in our patch, let's be honest, I'm going to do it. So.
Thank you. And I've got Councillor Wall. I haven't got anything else to
Thank you, Chair. And Mayor Scaife, I'm just asking about the future of the Trailblazer for getting people back into work, because I had hoped that this new mayoral system would get us over the stop-go government grant. You got, you know, will suddenly tell you you've got some money, but you've got to spend it in a finite amount of time. And I did meet in January some of the outreach workers, but will that system grind to a halt at the end of March, given the delays in getting assessments for disabled people to get adaptations for work, and the government's new interest in reducing NEETs, which is an issue I raised at a similar meeting to this, when the Trailblazer was starting off, that some investment in under 16s would actually reduce the number of NEETs that emerged later in their lifetime. So it was can you give a reassurance that that work, now it's started, can continue?
So you'll be aware that we've had a second round of the £10 million funding as well. So Yeah, I completely agree with you on this. The frustrations around year settlements in terms of this has been not just a frustration that I've raised, but all combined authorities raised. I remember speaking to Mayor Richard Parker in the Midlands, and the amount of different funding streams they get into skills and variations was, I think, over 100 different pots of funding. So which is why the important potential of becoming an established status and then moving further, being able to basically almost have like one pot, so you have a lot more control over it, and you know that long-term investment, which is absolutely key, particularly in this area, because what you don't want to do is ramp up a program which can take you a few months, then fund it, and then have to ramp it down again or run it down. So having the second year tranche of funding is really important. You may also be aware that the first round we basically had to develop a plan and get it out the door within 6 weeks, I think it was, which again, for anyone who's been involved in this, to ramp up a plan to spend £10 million in 6 weeks is incredibly difficult. So we've been able to take a lot of learnings from that first year, actually, and review of what's actually worked really well, what hasn't worked really well, and how we're best placed to drive that funding for round two. We are hoping it becomes a long-term settlement, but we haven't had clarification on that yet. But we do have the second year, which is incredibly welcome, and mayors are always pushing for stronger devolved powers, particularly in skills, to have it post-16 rather than post-19 adult skills funding, because as you've touched on there, the opportunity to engage with younger people before we get into the point of 19, 20 is incredibly important, because obviously then, you know, you can sort of help them support on what journey they go through college, through university, through and all other avenues of training. So that's something we're always pushing on, and for that longer settlement. We do have a record amount of investment going into adult skills funding over the next 4 years, which is again great to see, but it's make sure it's going to the right places. And organisations that we work with know that they've got that long-term finance to be able to deliver the service that we need them to do. But it is something we're pushing on, because it is frustrating only having 1 year funding. That said, we never turn down £10 million because it is incredibly important.
Yeah, I've got 2 more speakers. I've got Councillor Williams and Councillor Hazlitt. If we can just keep it professional, thank you.
I have a completely different subject on this occasion. I'd be grateful if you could just explain, and I want to make it quite clear at the outset that I'm all in favour of inclusivity. I have many gay friends, and I also have a mixed race daughter, so inclusion is important to me. But I'm finding it difficult to understand the justification for giving York Pride £22,000 to hold an event on the Knavesmire out of the Sustainable High Street Fund. And I'd be grateful if you could explain how you think that the event will give significant benefit to the High Street.
Yeah. So we funded Skipton Pride last year. We took a lot of learnings from that, and the amount of visitors that came to Skipton, the dwell time. I was there when 2 or 3 restaurants and bars weren't even going to open, then they opened up and they had full capacity, and we saw it as a great opportunity. York Pride is one of the biggest prides in the north. It attracts circa over 17,000 people who don't all just go to Knavesmire. They actually start in the centre of York. That's where the march starts from. The increase in dwell time in the city that weekend is very large. The increase in hospitality stays, hotel stays is brilliant. Having been a retailer in York for many years, it was always one of our strongest weekends, so I can vouch for that as well. So it's not just the fact that it's at Knavesmire, it engages the whole of York. And as you'll be aware as well, on the way of the march to the Knavesmire, it does pass other areas of York as well, and high streets as well, which we don't just talk about high streets in terms of York city centre, it's those surrounding areas as well. And for investment into a project like that, but the engagement it gets in terms of, say, the attraction to York, people come in, the stays, everything, I think it's an incredibly worthwhile investment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Councillor Heston?
Mayor Scaife, I note that you are considering what would you call a hospitality levy, and I wanted to put an idea forward that perhaps the money, so that that everybody can see exactly where all the money goes, is that perhaps a large chunk of it could be on making public conveniences that are accessible to all across the whole of North Yorkshire. Everybody would see it, residents and all our visitors and tourists. Thank you.
Yeah, as I say, the full details of what the overnight levy is still unknown to us. government could turn around and say, you're not allowed to spend it on this, that, you can only spend it on this, that, but we don't know. We are working on what structure we would have in place to administer funding if it did come in, and then how that would engage with organisations, community groups and otherwise to get transparency, to people know where it's going, but making sure we are also spending the money in the right areas, so we're not just sat and handing the money out, making sure it is meeting the needs of the region as well. But until we know what those limitations are or the legislation is, it is kind of all up in the air, really. We are presenting to government some ideas, but really it's about what they're going to feed back to us. So until we have that, unfortunately, I can't really answer too many more on that.
Thanks very much. Anyone else like to speak? Councillor Merritt, did you want to ask another question?
I've got the opportunity, yes. On buses. You've obviously got a very different mix of bus services in North Yorkshire. You have the long distance strategic bus services. You have very localised services in the main conurbations, York, Harrogate, Scarborough, and in some of the smaller towns. So how are you envisaging that you will actually organise both the delivery structure for that, but also more particularly how local stakeholders are involved in that? Because obviously if you just have a single enhanced bus partnership for the whole of the county, that may well end up dealing with lots of local issues specific to one part of the county. But under a single partnership may not have the local knowledge in terms of commenting on that. So I just wondered how your thought is developing on that issue.
If I can just throw another challenge into it as well, it's whatever option we go through is how that connects into other regions outside of York and North Yorkshire well. So, for example, if you have a full franchise model in West Yorkshire, for example, how we would blend into that, because obviously a lot of travel is transport as well, which hasn't really ever been explored or delivered on. So you'll be aware, Councillor, that government have funded us to run the rural franchising pilot, which is looking at 5 strategic areas across the region, and actually understanding what any form of franchising, be it full franchise, EP plus or anything on that whole route would actually look like. And that piece of work is very much live as we speak. But you are right, we don't want to lose any expertise from the enhanced partnerships that we already have in York and North Yorkshire, and making sure that the groundwork and the knowledge that's been built up for many years is kept. But it can be obviously enhanced with the work that we're doing now and with the relationship now we have with DFT on this, and then the rural franchising pilot that will hopefully be reported in the next, I think it's 6 months or so. I can't quite remember what the detail is. That will give us a much better understanding of what the model would look like. Also factor in the fact that, it's not necessarily one model fits all. As we've always said, you can't just roll up what Manchester have done and go deliver that as a bus model in our region. It just probably wouldn't work, to be honest with you. It costs a fortune. So that's why we're in this exploring phase now. Having more capacity in the transport team has really helped on this as well. Obviously, when we started out, we weren't born out of a transport authority like Manchester and West Yorkshire was. So we didn't have that expertise in-house at the start, whereas now we do. So that's obviously been able to enhance that work and really push that on. But hopefully from the work that's been done on that, it will give us a better understanding of whatever franchise model looks like we can best explore. And it might even end up coming out, it's some sort of blended approach where this kind of model is done here, but a different model done over there. Again, that's not been explored before, but that might be something that works best for us because of our geography and the density that we have. In York, it kind of makes sense, but in a lot of our rural communities, it's just really, really difficult to develop a transport or a bus network out in those areas.
Thank you very much. Councillors, there are no more councillors indicating that they wish to put a question to Mayor Scaife. I'm going to wrap this up now. You've had a couple of questions. So just finally, please could I formally request that you present the piece of paper regarding the levy? I thought that was really interesting, that you would show the strengths and weaknesses. I think that this committee would really find that useful. So if you could present that to us, that would be really good. And could I just thank you for taking part in the question and answer session? Thank you for coming to our meetings and presenting to us. So I know you're a very busy man and you will want to get off. You're more than welcome to stay if you would like to stay.
I may go.
I expected that. So thank you very much. We're just having a reshuffle of chairs. But just, if anyone would like to get a drink, please do. So I think I'll let you invite. Moving swiftly on to item 6. This is on the agenda pages 17 to 28. So this is quite a large document. Consideration of York and North Yorkshire's strategy for sustainable future consultation draft. So as I understand it, this strategy has been considered by this committee back in June. Known then as another name, and I think it was carbon negative. So I believe Andrew and Lucy are here to present this update. They're going to present the update on progress, talk about the change of name, and I understand that the version is going to go to combined and then go out to consultation. So councillors, this is a pre-public consultation and our feedback will be taken on board and will be considered. So I've allocated 10 minutes for the presentation, guys. Is that going to be enough for you? And then 30 minutes of questions? Is that okay? Okay, so over to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just do a very brief overview and then I'll pass to Lucy really to go through the bulk of the report. But as the chair said, this report was previously the route map to carbon negative, and we looked at this as being a refresh. And as we started to go through a series of the consultation on that, that was a change of name for to the sustainable future. And as Lucy will go through, the ambition for carbon negative hasn't come out of the strategy. It's just the name was changed to reflect a broader concept here. The other thing is, just to reiterate, this is a consultation draft. So what we're looking to do is to go to the combined authority meeting on the 27th of March, next Friday, week on Friday, to get this draft approved, so we can go out for a much more formal consultation, which will be a sort of 8-week consultation process. But I'll hand to Lucy, and Lucy can run through the bulk of the report.
Thanks, Andrew. So yes, this is something that we've brought previously to overview and scrutiny. So really, this is just an opportunity to highlight the progress that we've made. Hopefully, those of you that saw it last time will see that there's been quite a lot of changes and a lot of progress made. So in terms of a bit of background, the ambition to become England's first carbon negative region underpinned our devolution deal with central government. And as a result, we secured 7 million to accelerate green growth. That was in the form of the Net Zero Fund. We're now working on the Carbon Negative Challenge Fund, which is another 10 million. So essentially, having that carbon negative ambition was a really key anchor for us and has offered us lots of opportunities as a region. In terms of why carbon negative, we have a lot of innovation assets and pioneering businesses in the region. Our high quality natural capital is another big part of that. And generally that there is a lot of ambition in the region to lead the way, especially around the climate. So previously, the former local enterprise partnership launched the route map to carbon negative. So that has set out the strategic priorities and key actions for achieving carbon negative. And again, as additional background, City of York Council declared a climate emergency in March of 2019, and North Yorkshire Council declared a climate emergency in July of 2022. So picking up on all of that background, so building on that kind of foundation and the work that had been done on the route map to carbon negative, and then with the added context of the combined authority coming into existence, we started to look at refreshing that document. And as we went along, as Andrew alluded to with the name change, there were additional things that we wanted to bring into the strategy to make it more holistic. So really the purpose of the strategy is to support the councils, ourselves, and other partners in the region to deliver on their climate ambitions and enable a joined up approach across the region. So in terms of where we got up to, the executive summary, which includes the strategic framework, that was signed off by the combined authority in November of last year. That is in Appendix 1 that comes with the report. That's the executive summary. So since then, we've developed the full draft, which is also attached as an appendix. So in terms of the development process, we have an evidence base for that, which includes what our pathways are to achieving carbon negative. Those are outlined in the technical report. We also have commissioned some research focusing more on climate adaptation. So what are the impacts of climate change, and how do we quantify those impacts and react to them? So that's another piece of work which hasn't quite finished, but once it has, it will be included more so within the final draft. In terms of stakeholder engagement, we set up a task and finish group for overseeing this process, which is co-chaired by City of York Council's executive member for environment and climate emergency and North Yorkshire Council's climate change champion, which has been really positive. Within that task and finish group, we've also included organisations who have a key strategic role to play in the strategy. So the national parks, for example, Northern Power Grid, Yorkshire Water, all of those kinds of people. We've also done separate engagement with businesses, community groups, and all of the various people that we would like to be involved with the strategy as it goes forward. And we also did a stakeholder workshop in March of last year with over 80 people looking specifically at the different sectors. So as has been said, there's been a sort of key change and a bit of a shift into how we've gone about this strategy. So moving it more towards the idea of a sustainable future. From the beginning of doing this engagement, it was clear that there's a lot of ambition within the region and strong support to tackle climate change, and also strong consensus that that has to be credible, feasible and deliverable as well. But something else that's been emphasised throughout has been the need for climate action to provide tangible benefits for communities and businesses in the short term as well as the long term as well. So that is one of the things that we have tried to incorporate within the draft strategy. We've also had concerns about whether some net zero solutions are actually sustainable and high costs associated with them as well. So that again is something that we've tried to incorporate. And all of that is what has led to us evolving our ambition. As Andrew said, not removing carbon negative, it's very much still a central part of it, which I'll go through in a second, but also acknowledging that there are other things that we need to bring into the strategy. So in terms of the strategy, I won't run through it in great detail, but just at a headline level. So the kind of introduction maps out the purpose of the strategy, aims and objectives, and showcases that strategic framework that I mentioned earlier. And then we go more into the specific goals of the strategy. So in terms of what we call our big goals, our key outcomes for the region, it's becoming England's first carbon negative region by 2040, as I've said. And then the two that are kind of newer are economic transformation and healthy and thriving communities, the latter very much relating to the Mayor's ambitions for the region. And then we have some strategic pillars. So we have securing energy independence, moving towards a circular economy and enhancing our environment. Essentially, this is acknowledging that to deliver these outcomes, we need to focus on these specific things. And that is to also ensure a holistic approach, avoiding what we call carbon tunnel vision, essentially just focusing on carbon reduction. Again, there are other elements to be considered. And then we have our high impact sectors. So those are clean, affordable and reliable power, warm, comfortable buildings, accessible, convenient transport, innovative, sustainable businesses, resilient landscapes, sustainable food and farming, healthy marine and coastal environments, and empowered community action. So for each of those sectors, we have sector plans which outline what we need to see within those specific sectors. And that includes for all of them a vision and key principles, summary of progress made, strategic priorities, and an outline of some initial actions. We are planning to create implementation plans for all of those that are much more detailed. So at the minute, it's just high-level actions that demonstrate some of the big things that we'd expect to see. But all of that is detailed in the appendix. And then we've also got a section on strategic enablers, essentially acknowledging that to create a sustainable future, it needs to be easy, convenient, affordable and desirable for people and businesses to make those sustainable choices. So acknowledging that there is an infrastructure kind of requirement, but that we also need to enable this change to happen. So in terms of, as I said, we went to that November Combined Authority meeting of last year. Some of the feedback that we received there was around incorporating a strategic priority on improving the sustainability of rivers, lakes and watercourses, which we've added into the strategy. And also just to emphasise that this strategy has been co-designed in close collaboration with both City of York Council and North Yorkshire Council. And therefore it does align closely with their respective strategies and plans. And also to emphasise that this strategy isn't seeking to replicate existing work or existing strategies. It aims to build a collaborative strategic approach to tackling climate change at a regional level, and again reflects the new devolved powers of the Combined Authority. So finally, the next steps for this, as Andrew said, is to go to the Combined Authority meeting on the 27th of March with recommendations to approve the consultation draft for an 8-week public consultation starting in April. So The idea with that is that we take a two-pronged approach, some aimed at stakeholders like businesses and public sector bodies, and the views of organisations who can provide more detailed feedback on the actual strategy. And then the second would be to seek the views of the general public to understand the challenges that communities face and which interventions are most beneficial and appealing to the general public. And we are doing some work with our communications team at the moment to try and work out the best ways to disseminate that information. And we'd also take that opportunity to do some further engagement with both the councils, possibly more around the implementation plans that I mentioned earlier. And then following that consultation period, we will review all the feedback and work to incorporate it and redraft and bring that back to the combined authority for final approval. I think that's everything.
Thank you very, very much, Lucy, and thank you for that appraisal, and thank you for all the documentation. There's a lot of documentation to get through, and we will be putting some questions to you. But just before we do that, I understand that we've got two observers. So could we just introduce our observers, please?
Okay, Chair. So I understand it's the co-chairs of the task group. So Councillor David Hugel from North Yorkshire Council and Councillor Jenny Kent from City of York Council.
Thank you. Welcome to our meeting. Have you just come to observe, or would you like to ask some questions? Because you are well.
Just observe it, I think.
That's absolutely. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. I just wanted to give you the opportunity. Okay, members. So it's over to you to put forward your questions, which will obviously be taken on board and considered. So we've got Councillor Fisher first. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this report. I've read through it in considerable detail and there's lots of extremely good stuff in it. There are one or two areas I'd just like to probe a little further. One of the problems with being energy independent, and Britain has the capacity to be completely energy independent, so we don't have to worry about the orange man across the water quite so much and his insane behaviour. The problem with all renewable energy is that it is both diurnally variable, that's over short terms, and long-term variable over seasonal. That's particularly true of solar. Now, in the document says that you want to deploy energy storage to a scale of 736 megawatts capacity by 2038. Sitting on York's planning committee, all the applications for energy storage have been batteries, and lithium-ion batteries carry both higher risk and they also have a very large carbon footprint. The other problem is that with their limited energy storage, they can only store and deal with diurnal variations in supply. Has there been any discussion with any agency about bringing in seasonal energy storage, such as cryogenic liquid air storage or molten salt storage, which are widely used in Scandinavia and North America, to produce seasonal storage so that excess energy produced in the summer can be stored in insulated tanks and then released in the winter?
Thank you for that. I'll take it back to the team and see what we can look at. We have got a programme called the Energy Generation Accelerator Programme, or EGAP, which is specifically looking at kind of the energy system as a whole within the region and looking at different types of technology. So I'll double check with that programme as well, whether that's something we can incorporate.
Thank you.
I've got Councillor Merritt next. Thank you.
Yes, a couple of points. In terms of your strategy aim and objectives on page 29, the green box there basically refers to the headline climate change net zero target. It doesn't on the surface of it really reflect the wider scope of the rest of the document, and I wondered whether you perhaps need to tweak that. Secondly, on page 39, in terms of barriers, clearly, for the urban parts of the authorities areas, one of the biggest problems we've got in terms of public transport is bus reliability and the problems of congestion and the rest of it, which I don't think, which aren't reflected in your list of barriers, which are fine in terms of other issues, but as I say, don't adequately reflect the big challenges in the main urban areas. The other issue I wanted to pick up was on the warm, comfortable buildings. You've mentioned the lack of demand for retrofit and some of the issues with the other new techs. I mean, I actually think one of the biggest barriers is lack of public confidence, both sometimes just in the tech, sometimes more particularly in terms of being able to find reliable people to actually deliver the tech and having the confidence that it will be competently delivered and that they won't end up with having to get it put right afterwards. So I think actually that's really one of the most massive barriers that we've got in terms of the adequate and effective rollout of the massive change we need to make in terms of retrofitting our properties.
Did you want to come back on that, Lucy, or have you just taken that on board?
Yeah, I think just taking that on board on the last point for the buildings, I think it's something we can revisit as to how we've worded it, because everything that you've said is definitely included within those are the things that result in demand not being as high, if that makes sense. So that's something we can revisit as to how we've worded that.
Thanks. Councillor Haslam?
Thank you, Chair. Just before I start, Chair, may I ask that perhaps we have an opportunity to send written to yourself, because I think some of the detail is highly complex and particularly the cryogenic stuff, so that they have copies of it rather than trying to remember it here. I just think this, sort of, with all the best will in the world, and sort of, and however many sort of chat GPTs you've got on the side, it's going to be hard to retain all this. So I appreciate how difficult this is for you. So look, well done on all the work. I think it's great. I do think there's still more to build on. I'm going to just make a couple of comments for you, and then a couple of areas that really concern me. I'd like to see food security as a strategic pillar. I think it's absolutely critical, and there is a Food for Future project running across North Yorkshire, been running for 3 years. So I think that is crucial. I think people, planet and profit is what we need to see, and it's important that the things that we do make economic sense to the individual. So I like the fact you've picked that up. One of the things that I converted from LPG because I live rurally, 2016, and my bills. So I have solar and I have air source heat pumps. My bills, even today, are a quarter of what they were then. So it does make sense. And there was a comment earlier about why isn't it in all our planning stuff? Because to retrofit is hard work. I live in a 1749 farmhouse, but it works there. So if you can work there, it can work anywhere. There's got to be effective communication and correction of misinformation. And I think that's very important because there's too much misinformation out there. But the two things that really bother me about this is I don't see enough quantifiable targets. And that's important, that there are real targets in this, because they will make change. They will make innovation. If you look at, people are trying to roll back whether we're going to get all electric cars by 2030, 2035, 2042, any date you want to think about. But the fact that that first date was put in, most of our car companies, they've passed that, they've gone past the tipping point. They're not going to go back. They're not going to start making combustion engine cars. They've gone past that tipping point, and you're going to see it this year. So that's the importance of the innovation of targets. So I think it's really important that they're seen there. They might have to be national and be reinforced, but targets create innovation. So there needs to be more quantifiable thing. The other thing that's missing from this is what I would call behavioural change. Now you talk about enablers, but the single biggest thing in doing climate change is actually behavioural change. And we need to have behavioural specialists working with how we enable, because we could put a brand new road there, and what happens is loads of people drive on it. But if we put a brand new cycle path, how many people are we going to get on it? How do we change? How do we had a talk here about confidence, and I think it's about how we create that confidence that we're going to have reliable bus services, etc. So we do need to effectively communicate with people and try and take them with us. But if the bus service is cheaper than holding a car, then let's make that pitch. And let's also use the end of life of a product, because people try and compare apples with pears. The world is going through, and certainly we are going through, a change of where we think capital spend and ongoing spend, the balance is changing. So the capital might be a bit higher, but the running costs are so much lower. And that has to be understood by people as well. So we had the comment about the fact that houses are more expensive, but in actual fact, the running costs are actually much more affordable. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And if I could just actually say that I think that was a great idea about sending any really detailed information. And from the chair, if I could ask, is that okay if we send it just straight to you? So any councillor who would like to send any detailed information, just send it straight to Lucy, and then it's going to the right person. And I think that you'll be able to deal with that much better than it coming to me and then to you, and we'll deal with it like that. So thank you. So I've got Councillor Packham waiting to speak or ask a question.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, my question's probably slightly more basic than the others. Incredibly long report. Couple of things bother me about it a bit, and that is on page 130, it says we need to work closely with central government to ensure we have the policy in place to deliver on our carbon and wider sustainability targets. Having looked at the strategic enablers plan on a page further into the report, I noticed there that under the barriers, there are 17 mentions of national government, most of which say need for national government policy, limits to national government policy, reliance on national government policy. So my question is really simple, I think. How much can we do without policy change? And what are we doing to achieve it?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's a really good question. So we can do a lot without changes from central government. I think what we were trying to reflect in the draft was that we can't do all of it. So using moving away from petrol and diesel cars, for example, that's something that we can create some of the infrastructure in our region to support that, but we can't necessarily impact the decisions of manufacturers. For example, we can work with them and try and understand what will be helpful, what is less helpful, those kinds of things. So it was in an effort to acknowledge that, and it's something that between ourselves and both local authorities, I think all of us have experienced as officers having those conversations with government, and some of the issues like very short funding windows, both to apply for and then to deliver funding, things like that do create, they are a bit of a barrier in terms of delivery. But it's something that we can look at, like how it's worded and everything like that. In terms of how we're actively trying to work on that, I think particularly since becoming a combined authority, trying to establish those relationships. So, for example, with Great British Energy, we've established a relationship with them. We now have a memorandum of understanding, which means that we have much more open communication with them and can go to them and say, we've got some of these projects that are a priority for us. How can you help us with that? And trying to have that kind of relationship with them. That I think that's the key thing that we're trying to do at the moment to resolve that.
Thank you very much. I've got Councillor Waller now. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and I'd like to thank officers for the report. We've had quite a few strategies over the decades, and I'm just thinking the first target that York Council set was in 1994 of a 25% reduction, and since then the understanding of the science behind strategies has changed, and I took on board the avoiding carbon tunnel vision, because I think that's an essential part of this, because there was a time when a environmental lobby group was arguing with government to increase the tax benefit of buying diesel over petrol, purely because of the carbon, not looking at the broader, there are other implications, and the same thing may happen with some of these new technologies that we're talking about, that they seem good at the moment, but as experience of their side effects are understood, then there needs to be a robustness within the strategy to cope with the fact that as the facts change, we change our strategy. So I think there's the broader aspect of the science, but there's also picking up some of the points made previously about a lot of the changes will be made at a household level. And it's having that confidence that people may once in their life change to air source heat pumps, and it's making sure that is as comfortable as possible with the right technology, the right company to install it, and having that confidence. And also, I think is avoiding the semi-detached tunnel vision of a lot of things work if you have the space and you have your own driveway, but not everyone lives in that circumstance. And so I would hope that in the public consultation, there's that breadth of experience. So people who have switched to electric vehicles, but their household isn't conveniently in a place where they can have their own charging point. It's understanding the practicalities, so that it wins people over, rather than saying to people, well, the science dictates you must do this, but it's actually saying, how can we help you to achieve this? And it's having that confidence, and certainly the short funding window, having visited Norway, that their switch to electric vehicles is almost complete, and it is not a terrain which lends itself to that, but it's a reflection of this is what you can achieve with a consistent funding system. And I think many of the solar panel arrays that we can see on community buildings around, it's been very much a stop-start go on that. So I think it would be useful to get the experience within the public consultation on those things that unintentionally bureaucracy creates hurdles that gets in the way. So let alone what national government gets in the way of. There are some things that we can influence more locally. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members who wish to speak or put a question? No, thank you. Oh, okay, Councillor Merritt, will let you.
Yes, I asked my
Because
most
we are
important ones there.
time, so we will let you have one more, and then we'll let Lucy and Andrew go.
I had two more detailed questions. One was on the bus electrification target of 2039, which feels distinctly unambitious when the main York bus fleet is already electrified. I think quite a large chunk of Harrogate's is, if I remember correctly. I would have thought there's real opportunity, given that, where we already are, for an earlier target, or at least a much more ambitious intermediate target on that. Arriva, who operate quite a number of services, just got an order for, I think it's 395 new electric vehicles gone in. So I think there's a lot more opportunity there. The other question I welcome the inclusion of the maritime section in this report. The one thing that doesn't particularly appear to be covered is the issue of pollution and discharges into the sea. And I wonder if we ought really to have something in there now. Appreciate the discharge into the sea from North Yorkshire actually lands somewhere else, but nonetheless we are contributing to it, and our coastal sections will be affected by the migration from the river mouths and also obviously you know, our sewage and other discharges into the sea, even if they are treated. The other thing I wanted to raise, the recommendation is to note this report. Can I suggest that we actually say we very much welcome this report and thank both the staff and the task force for all the work that has been put into it. I think this is not just a noting exercise. This is a tremendous report, and we should reflect that in how we make our decision.
Thank you. So I have got some more councillors waiting. Councillor Haslam and Councillor Basterman, thank you.
I promise to be very brief, so I'm just going to say, I think there should be more emphasis on the health benefits of everything you're doing here, and that includes obviously the pollution, etc. So I just think that health, and also if we save money from the NHS, that means you can get more money to do the job.
Thank you, Councillor Basterman.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Whilst I agree with what Councillor Merritt was saying, I think he's just slightly off kilter a bit, because the environment is affected within the beaches of Scarborough, not elsewhere, and that is a problem, big problem we're having with Yorkshire Water. And we have a meeting with them on Monday, but it doesn't go elsewhere. It just goes onto our beaches, and I would hope that can be looked at to that space. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And one last question then. Yes, you can go on.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just drawing together some of the threads which have been talked about today in this session and also the earlier session, which not everybody was here to listen to. But Councillor Fisher made a very good point at that stage as to the inadequacy of building regulation when it comes to energy efficiency of homes. And Councillor Haslam has given graphic illustration. We know we're moving into a period of greater house build than we have seen for probably since the 1950s. So this is a golden opportunity of us to be able to set out the stall. But it goes back to what you were saying in terms of we have to work with government policy. What I'd like to see within the document, therefore, is a strong nudge that the dialogue with government is such that the BREEAM rating of properties is increased very significantly.
Thank you. And I'll bring this session to an end then. So the recommendation is 2.1. So the overview and scrutiny are recommended to note the progress in relation to the development of the strategy for a sustainable future. We welcome it and thank officers for their work. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming and listening to us. And thank you very much, Laura, for accepting emails from members who wish to give you some more information. And we'll just have a changeover of chairs now because we've got someone else, if you'd like to come to the table. So thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Laura. That was wonderful. So thank you very much. So we've got welcome to James Farrar, Chief Executive, and welcome to Gemma Cooper, Head of Transformation and Change. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So if we could just have one meeting, that would be great. Thank you. If we could just have one meeting, that would be great. Thanks very much. So on to item 7. This is the corporate plan. I'm right, aren't I? So this is my understanding, an update on the plan. And obviously we're a very new authority. And I think that we're trying to get our priorities right and get the aspirations for the future. And as the ONS, we want to help you with that. So I understand it today that members that this is just an update and we need to consider this and we need to give some feedback. So James, over to you for 10 minutes. Is that enough for your introduction? Thank you. And then we'll take questions. I've left 30 minutes for that. Is that okay?
That's
time.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you. And
Thank you very much, James.
yeah, so just a little bit of context around this. Obviously, an initial corporate plan was created as the combined authority was launched. That was actually before the mayor was elected, which saw us through. But obviously, we're now 2 years in, and it's an appropriate time to review and update that corporate plan. I will say that this is a work in progress, and there is a bill currently going through government called the Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill, which very much sets out the government's future ambitions for devolution and combined authorities. So obviously we haven't yet got the final sight of what that final bill looks like, so we will need to consider that within the context of the corporate plan. We are expecting that imminently or any time from that perspective, but it's in many ways what this corporate plan is seeking to do is set out the plan for the organisation through the rest of this spending review period through to 2029. So obviously the government's ambitions around that is going to be really important to make sure that we are aligned with that. So I'll go a little bit through kind of the content as it's being created at the moment. Obviously I'm happy to take any questions that anyone might have around that. So the vision for the combined authority is as set out in the document, to create a thriving and confident York and North Yorkshire, where every community feels safe and is connected to opportunity. And our purpose is to work with partners within the region and beyond to develop and deliver policies and plans, programmes and services that will benefit our communities. So fairly high level. And again, I think it's important to understand that this is a corporate plan. The strategies sit beneath it, as you've just had explained to you, obviously, for the Sustainable Futures one, which will have much more detail around there. I think within that, it's then really to understand that what is the role of the combined authority. So the role of the combined authority is to take a long-term strategic view. It's to make sure we provide really ambitious and strategic leadership so that York and North Yorkshire is recognised both locally, regionally, nationally and internationally. It's our purpose is to work closely with government, and the Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill sets out quite clearly the role of the combined authorities and expectations around that. But a key part of that is to build the trust within government as a region that delivers. Because if we want further investment to be passed down to us, we need a track record and they need to have confidence in our capability to deliver. And then obviously we work very closely in partnership with local authorities, with our emergency services, business, colleges, universities, and much wider partners, and that's important. But then really importantly, we need to be an organisation that uses data and evidence and insights to decide what we're going to do. And hopefully the presentation we just had on the Sustainable Futures demonstrates the level of kind of data and intelligence we look to do that. And if we do all that, we'll build the trust of our kind of communities. Now, obviously, we have an elected mayor. So Mayor Scaife was elected coming up 2 years ago. And obviously he's our political leader, and he has a very clear vision that he's published within his manifesto, which is to enable healthy and thriving communities, to develop healthy and resilient communities that are connected to opportunity, where people live in warm and affordable homes, people are connected to the outdoors, and where places are safe for all. And within that, he has 5 key priorities. It's healthy and resilient communities, connected to opportunity, warm and affordable homes, connected to the outdoors, and safe places for all. And those priorities are embedded across the activity of the combined authority. So as an organisation, we structure ourselves to be able to deliver in the most effective, productive way that we can do. But obviously the mayor's priorities and are obviously then embedded in the work that we do across transport, place, growth, skills, and the wider police and crime work that we are responsible for. Like I say, we are 2 years old. We have now, we've very much worked in our first 2 years of getting up and running, getting stuff on the ground and delivering, making a real difference to people's lives, developing really ambitious strategies. And hopefully, like I say, you've seen some of those strategies coming through the committee. But beneath that, we then have to build that core corporate governance and decision-making structures. So making sure that we're making the right decisions in the right way and we are fit for purpose. So we've spent a lot of time and effort, particularly in the last year, building that kind of core leadership and delivery capacity. Gemma being a great example of bringing Gemma in to kind of help with that transformation. which is really us transitioning from setup to delivery and established status beyond there. Obviously, we operate in a world of constrained funding. We've recently got our settlements, which see us through for this spending review period through to 2029, and so we're really kind of focusing on doing that. As I mentioned earlier, the Devolution and Community Empowerment Bill is going through Parliament. There's a really key important bit within that, it differentiates, it creates a new status for combined authorities, which is called an established combined authority. So this is kind of where Manchester and West Yorkshire and West Midlands and the more established longer term combined authorities are, and it sets out the criteria to secure that established status. And securing that established status opens up the most opportunities for the region. So a key objective of ours will be to secure that established status as soon as we possibly can. Legally, we cannot do it until the bill passes through Parliament, but as soon as it passes through Parliament, we will look to secure that. There is then a further opportunity down the line around what's called an integrated or single settlement, but that is a separate decision for the combined authority to take, and the earliest we could achieve that would be the next spending review period, so 2028, 29 down there, but there will be a further decision to be made. So the combined authority has already made a decision to go for established status. That opens up the opportunities. The decision about the integrated settlement will be a further decision in a couple of years' time that will need to be made. But we need to build the organisation so we're fit for purpose around that. I have outlined in the document, and I won't go through some of the achievements to date. So the way we're structured is that we have an economy directorate, we have a transport directorate, we have the police, fire and crime directorate, and then we have central services, which is the underpinning governance around that. So I don't intend to go through all that. What I will say is I think one of the things that we're incredibly proud of is the way we've mobilised the investment that we've got at our fingertips. So it takes time to get up and running, make decisions, get money invested, actually deliver the outcomes and see the outputs at the other end of it. However, if you look at where we've received funding around housing, around the net zero agenda, around skills, around the Mayor's Investment Fund, we've kind of really got out there, we've got things happening, we've made a real difference. And parallel to doing that, we've developed some really good strategies. So just a couple of weeks ago, we had the launch of our local growth plan, which is a really, really positive event. 150 stakeholders here in York talking about the growth potential and the growth aspirations of the combined authority. And I think, it's a plan that's been developed in partnership and in collaboration, which is the way that we do everything. But it's also a plan which really importantly partners buy into and support. And nationally, it's been flagged up as a plan which is different. We're not trying to be Manchester or Leeds. We're recognising the strength and the uniqueness and capability of York and North Yorkshire, and our plan really kind of sells that through. So we've had lots of positive feedback around there. From a transport point of view, from a bus perspective, the Mayor's very much been focused on enhancing services across York and North Yorkshire and delivered a £1 fare for under 19s. There's a key worker fare, NHS key worker fare, and there's family day tickets. So that's been very important to the Mayor just to kind of make that real difference. Going forward, the plan is obviously to bring the bus services within the combined authority and manage it within the combined authority, and that will happen in the next 12 months. Again, similarly, police, fire and crime. I won't report it. We have some really good and crime services we deliver around violence against women and girls, around victim support, around improving public accountability. We are really kind of performing well, and we have really strong relationships with both police and fire with regard to holding them to account, and they're in a really strong place around that. If we look at where we want to go going forwards, it's very much around kind of providing greater clarity around some of these areas. And what we've done is we've created a number of strategic priorities. One is about accelerating and delivering inclusive economic growth being the #1 government mission, and obviously a key thing that the responsibility of the combined authority. The second is about delivering an integrated transport system that connects people to opportunity. Like I say, that includes bringing buses in-house. We want communities that will thrive, be safe and be healthy. That very much strong links through to the police, fire and crime. But then organisationally, we want to be a high-performing organisation, so make sure that we're as efficient and effective as we possibly can be, and we will deliver best value. We are spending public money. We need to make sure that public money is spent wisely, and we deliver best value for every pound that we spend. So we then broke those down about some of the outcomes and the outputs which will be delivered around that, and also some of the challenges that we will face, obviously, and the barriers are in the way. And again, I'll allow you to question and talk to any of those as you see fit, rather than going through them. But we've broken them down in those priorities. So one around the inclusive economy, another section around the integrated transport system, another section around thriving, safe and healthy communities, but then being a high performing organisation and delivering best value. And obviously we'll then look at what the outcome and impact looks like and how we'll deliver that across the organisation. So I'll probably must be nearing the 10 minutes, so I'll. Oh, that's okay. So that's fine. As we then go through, obviously the outputs are one thing. So when you deliver an investment, you deliver an investment that delivers an immediate output. But actually what we're trying to do is effect change and understand what the long-term outcomes are going to be. And so we're then trying to look at what those outcomes will look like and how we measure those. And again, these will evolve. As we look at the maturity of the combined authority that I mentioned earlier, the devolution and community empowerment bill, as we move towards what a more established combined authority looks like and being more integrated and more integrated funding and greater settlement, we will agree with government a set of high-level outcomes that we will achieve as a region, and then that will secure us greater flexibility on how we deliver those within the funding that we get. So initially, when you first start, you get pots of money to deliver outputs. As you become more mature and more established and better as you operate, you then negotiate with government for those outputs to turn into outcomes. And those outcomes, you then have greater flexibility over the money on how you achieve those outcomes. So the next phase, if you like, of the life of this corporate plan. So by the end of this corporate plan, yes, we'll be focused on the outcomes that are in here, but we'll be looking to then negotiate that greater flexibility with central government. So we have some high level outcomes, which we'll look at across the region on how we want to deliver that. So very much that's the focus of what the corporate plan. Within that, there'll then be a section on the finances. Like I say, we got quite a few settlements just before Christmas. It was literally up to Christmas Eve. So we got a long-term transport settlement. We've got a skills settlement. We got a local growth fund of £40 million, which we're currently working through about how they will be invested going forwards. But that has allowed us as an organisation to now plan beyond a single year-to-year budget to look at a 3-year plan, so we can again look at how we can drive greater impact, greater efficiencies as we move forwards. And then obviously we move on. The final section of the corporate plan is looking at some of the risks and assumptions that we've got within that. We live in a very fluid world, and obviously there's a lot of global uncertainty amongst other things at the moment. So we are always kind of subject to that and the change that will come. What I will say is that the relationship between combined authorities generally and central government is very, very strong. And there's a really strong kind of partnership building between combined authorities and central government, and that in itself creates opportunities. So we need to very much see the combined authority at the forefront of that, being on the front foot to take those opportunities. So we are in a strong place with central government. We are in a strong place with local partners, but we are still a young organisation. We are only 2 years old, and there's a really important phase now of moving from that startup to being a well-established corporate organisation which can maximise on the opportunities for the region. But on that, I'm happy to take any questions that anyone might have.
So just before we launch into questions, just take a breath, because that was a very quick whistle stop tour. Thank you so much. But it's not numbered, isn't the page, but context and organisational maturity.
Yeah.
Really interesting, and the empowerment bill. Because I'm curious, what actually is the timeline for that, James? Where are we sort of thinking? Are we thinking years, or what are we thinking?
Absolutely not. So we expect it anytime. So we are expecting literally within next week or 2 weeks some briefing on what the final content of that bill will look like. And the aim is to get royal assent, I think, before the local elections this year, where local elections standing. So it is absolutely has gone through all the Lords and everywhere. It's at the very final stages with regard to that. And like I said, we know the established status element is within it, so so we're very much working towards that. There are some elements where we're not quite sure what amendments have been made, which may link to some of the surplus, such as fire and such like as an organisation.
That's quite reassuring. So thank you. So slightly less time for questions now, because I'm sticking to time. But would you like to take the questions, or would your colleague? Are we?
Well, just fire them, and whoever's best place to answer, okay. we'll go that way.
Open to you, members. Councillor Merritt, thank you.
Yes, just in terms of the government's bill, quite a lot of government bills heavily dependent on secondary legislation and implementation. Is that going to be the case with this bill, or is most of it actually going to be in effect pretty straight away?
It varies. So the established status, so what will happen with the established status is that will be as part of the bill, which will go through it. but then to formally award both ourselves and East Midlands, which are the other combined authority in the same place as established status, we'll need secondary legislation. So we just last week got the criteria through with regard to what you have to achieve to get established status. We're putting the evidence base together to do that now. We're pretty confident that we are fit for purpose with regard to that. So what will happen is the Royal Assent will happen, and then secondary legislation, which we're expecting to be through by sometime in the summer. Summer is a very flexible period within central government, but sometime in the summer we're expecting that secondary legislation to formally establish it as an established combined authority.
Thank you. Councillor Waller.
Thank you, Chair. Very interesting report. Is there going to be the possibility of having the outcomes mapped so that in terms of what does this authority do for me could be seen by a resident, and they can see at whatever level of this is what has happened as a consequence of devolution? Can that happen?
And as part of the development of the plan and the outcomes that we're proposing we'll be able to achieve, the assurance and performance frameworks are being strengthened within the organisation as well. And as part of that, we'll be able to identify measures and metrics which will allow us to then kind of map trends as well as outcomes and impact.
Now, I was thinking more of you translate all of these words into tangible outcomes that people can see in their ward, in their district, in their whatever, and so they can, rather than have to plough through a document, which we all do, but that's our job. I think in terms of winning the argument, because obviously if you want to become an established combined authority state, it's just like, well, come on, what have you done with the money that you've got now?
Yeah,
and I think that I think is the most frustrating aspect of talking to residents in the street about, well, what does mayor do? What does
So if you consider the corporate plan as almost kind of the high level document, underneath that will sit then a set of directorate plans, service plans and delivery plans, which all contribute to delivery of those strategic priorities and outcomes. And that's kind of the more tangible activities that we'll be able to say, we've achieved this, we've changed this, we've increased this, we've improved this. That's still in development until we approve the content of the corporate plan, then we'll start working with directorates to get that detail.
Okay. Is that, yeah, okay. Thank you, Councillor Haslam.
Thank you, Chair. I have one specific comment on one general comment. The specific comment is I was disappointed to see that county lines is not mentioned anywhere in the police piece. It's such a big issue and yet we're not talking about it. And for that matter, cybersecurity. So I am very concerned that those two items are conspicuous by their absence, let's put it that way. In terms of, we've just had a very interesting paper presented to us. Yeah. And I'm not convinced about the congruence of the two documents that are in front of me. So I would like you to review that. Yeah. Because if you are going, you know, sort of one of the biggest criticisms of business is that climate change is on the edge here and that we're just ploughing ahead. No, it helps the economy. It's about people and planet and then profit, or in this case, service. So please, would you look at that congruence for? Thank you. Yeah.
So in answer to your first point, obviously the police and crime plan, which is the police's formal document around that, and certainly the county lines is something that very much, you know, we're very much live to, and a lot of work is going on with regard to that. So in terms of ensuring the focus around that, I think the police and crime plan is the primary document that we need to have the focus on with regard to making sure that's the key case. I mean, cybersecurity is a really interesting one because that's not just a police and crime thing. That's a whole business and industry and everything else, isn't it, around the importance of cybersecurity. And so I'll take that away and obviously speak to it because it is a real.
But I mean, sort of county lines, you've got multiple agencies that are involved. You've got young children. It's you know, that also is a big topic.
I absolutely get that. Your point about the strategies and the way through that, you know, it's absolutely fair. We'll certainly take that away. And there needs to be, you know, there's a hierarchy, if you like, a family of strategies. And when in a way we can create a visual of that family of strategies, that might be a good thing to put in the document, because again, as we're growing and expanding, there's increasing numbers of these strategies. But if we can create something which actually shows where we've got the local growth plan, we've got the sustainable futures plan, we've got the local transport plan, etc. There might be a visual we can actually put in here which brings it to life better than a set of words actually.
Just behavioural congruence, I think, is what I'm really.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to
Thank you,
provide some
Gemma.
additional assurance on that. Just to give some context, this presentation is really just a very high level approach to what the corporate plan will look like. And behind the scenes is a much more detailed document being worked up. And within that, there is a visual that kind of, well, we hope articulates the relationship between the corporate plan and all of the supporting strategies as well, so that there's some context provided on that basis.
Yeah.
Or alignment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Members, anyone else wishing to ask a question? Councillor Stewart?
It's not a question. It can be a would you agree if you want, but it's a comment.
It's a comment.
And I like James, and I rate James highly, but that's getting in the no disrespect, but obviously. And I appreciate the high level aspects.
Yeah.
But I hate the words high level. I really do. I mean, for me, this is the classic difference between the private sector world I live in and the public sector world. And there's just nothing here, in my opinion. There's nothing at all here. If I look at the priorities, we've got 5 priorities over 5 pages, and there is not a single word of this I could show to any of the good people of Copmanthorpe or the good people of York and say, look at this line, look at number 3 on priority 2 on point 3. It is just the blandest document ever. And it's just, so that's going a bit far because let's put another way. Let's insult more people. It's typical of this sort of bland document in this sort of organisation. But what do these things mean? I mean, you have to have stuff in here that people could disagree with. And I don't think there's a word that anybody could disagree with. You know, who doesn't want more joined up thinking? Who doesn't want more governance assurance? Who doesn't want improved buses? Who doesn't want lobbying, strengthening of links? For me, there's just nothing here. And so that's my big frustration. On what we've achieved so far, I do appreciate it's very new and everything like that. And we've got the sort of success as generally spending money. You know, that's the success rather than what have we spent the money on, rather than what have we achieved when the money's been spent. You know, very NHS, we've got this amount of money, it's fantastic, great. What have you done? We don't know. So we've heard about the underlying directorate documents beneath. I suppose from my point, I'm just absolutely desperate to see those. And I think for me, it's when do we see those? When can we discuss this? Because every single word of these priorities that I can see is motherhood, apple pie, more sunny days. And I would just to sort of add on that, I think that's essentially one of the problems here is the fact that we have this mayor in for the bit, and then we have the officers in, you know, for the latter bit. And I've said before, I think it'd be better if it was mayor in for all of it, because he may want to absorb some of those bullets, you know, rather yourself, James. But hopefully that's my point is clear in terms of my frustrations about this sort of report.
And yeah, first I have to take those on board, and a long time no see. Nice to see you again. Actually, I do mean that sincerely. And I think it's a valid point. I think one of the points I'd make is, in a way, that the purpose of this document is to make sure that we are organising the business in the right way to be as effective. The bits about where our priorities and where people might disagree, if you like, your points of disagreement, would be the local growth plan, would be the sustainable futures, because they're the difference we're going to make out there. They're the strategies about what we're going to do out in North Yorkshire to grow the economy, to make a difference, you know, where we're going to prioritise our investments. So I completely take on your board. I'll take that away to think about how we can play that through. But very much this document is here to say that this is how we are going to operate corporately to make sure that we are as effective as we possibly can. The bits that say what we're actually going to do are the local growth plan, the local transport plan, etc., etc.
Thank you. Councillor Merritt, I'll just let you have one more comment or question, and then we'll have to close this section.
Yep. Delivery and resources on page 238. talks about strengthening governance oversight and assurance arrangements. And it partly picks up on some of the other points. There's no real mention of the public. I mean, this is all our internal stuff. So I think it might be useful to specifically recognise the area of public engagement, communications, and accountability in this document. In terms of governance oversight, combined authorities meeting on a monthly basis at the moment. We only meet on a quarterly. And the reality is, as we'll get to when we get to the work plan item, there's a whole set of important papers that are coming up between this and the next meeting that we haven't had the opportunity to scrutinise. So we do need to do something about the cycle and the accurate having a forward plan that really covers 6 months ahead if we're on this cycle, so that we actually can identify all the important papers and make sure that we do actually cover and scrutinise those that we do collectively see as important. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I just respond? First of all, we'll pick up the frequency. I'm hoping that full plan will become easier as we go forward. So in the last year, as it were, there's been quite a lot of short-term funding coming through. And for example, we got a lot through just before Christmas where we had to get plans to government by March. So literally the pace with which we've had to meet over the last 3 months has been driven by that. What we do now have is the 3-year settlements. So the 3-year settlements should allow us to have that planning, that kind of 6-month planning as you talk about ahead, and be clear about the decisions that we're going to make. But when you're working on annual budgets, you often got this. You get the money. You've got to get a report back to government by 2 or 3 months, and it's very hard to kind of factor that in. But certainly, Paul, we can take that away and look at what does that future plan look like? Is quarterly right, or actually is there a different kind of pattern we need to get in there?
So thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, James. Thanks, Gemma, for coming to see us. It may be helpful, because there's been a lot of really good points raised, that we could maybe have sight, or you can send it over to me with your changes and amendments from today, just to see and highlight them, just to see if any of our concerns have been, looked upon and blended into this document. That would be really helpful and really useful. Could we ask that of you? Thank you. Yes, we do need the report, but we need to. I would be happy to see the amendments as well. That would be really, yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks very much. So, councillors, we're nearly there. Thank you. Moving on to item 8. So this is the exciting, very exciting item, review of Constitution. And I mean that, okay, because we've got to have our Constitution right, because when we need it, we do need it. So that's on page 243274. If you just bear with me 1 second. So Paul, you're going to take us through this, aren't you?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just to put members' minds at ease, it is an exciting area in my view. The title is a little dry, but I didn't want to frighten members into thinking we were reviewing the whole Constitution at 12:30 in this meeting. By way of introduction, really to pick up James's introduction to the last item, it's very similar that we have a constitution in place. It was adopted at one of our very first meeting back in the beginning of 2024. We're now 2 years in. We know we have a better understanding of where devolution has taken us and where devolution is heading in the next couple of years. And it's time to undertake a fairly comprehensive review of the constitution to make sure it's still fit for purpose. So this isn't a change for change's sake. The idea is to reflect devolution in its current form, to make sure it's accurate and fit for purpose, to try and make it as concise as possible and as clear to read as possible, and hopefully to provide a manual that staff can use as a fairly easy to read document and make sure that people are applying the rules consistently. So the review of the Constitution is within the remit of the Audit and Governance Committee, and we do have a little overlap in membership today, which is really, really helpful from my perspective. But there are certain elements of the Constitution, which I've highlighted here, the access to information rules and the scrutiny procedure rules, that scrutiny are not only invited to participate in, but are required to give a view on in some areas. So hopefully this report just gives a bit of a snippet of those areas. I've tried to avoid presenting fully drafted versions because I don't think it's the best way to deal with a document of that scale in a committee of this size. But I've introduced the elements of it, which I'm asking for a steer on from this committee. And then if we can get that in a record either after this meeting or if we get comments following the meeting, that will be then fed back into the Constitution Working Group, which feeds into the Audit and Governance Committee and then on to Combined Authority for final approval. So the areas that we're hopefully having a bit of a look at today are the call-in process, which is not called call-in in legislation when it comes to combined authorities, but fulfills the same purpose. Any exemptions and limitations to call-in, the urgency and special urgency procedures that apply to the forward plan and to call-in, the definitions of key decisions, and then the thresholds for any significant officer decisions that we're required to publish under separate regulations. They are all outlined in the report. If you'd like me to go through it, Chair, through the various sections, I can, or whether you just want me to open it up there to the various sections if members have any particular comments or questions.
Well, I think you've all got your papers, you've had your papers, and if there's anything that you want clarification on, if you want to question, if you want to ask Paul, then I think now's the time to do it. I don't think we need to go through it line by line. So, Councillor Stewart.
It's just to clarify on the key decisions. So we've also got these different thresholds, and then we've got this qualitative significance brackets 2 or more wards. Is it sort of an either or?
Yes, it is.
Right. Okay. So just further to that, 2 wards for something doesn't sound a great many wards across the whole area. It's going to be the point I would make on that, if that is.
That's correct. I think the reason for that is that it's lifted directly out of the regulations that apply to local councils, which apply that definition. The key element in that is what significantly affects those communities, and I think that's where we have a challenge as an authority to define that area. I've done a bit of benchmarking, looking at what other authorities have. It's fair to say on the community element, there isn't a lot of definition within combined authorities because it's quite a subjective matter. If we wanted to provide any steer on that, it would be some guidance from members around the type of decision that we take is typically grant programs, it's procured activity. We're now getting into transport and education functions in a more serious way. And we need to draw a distinction really between a scheme being open to members of the public from different areas. Is that a significant impact? That's probably distinct from a road that's going through 2 or 3 different wards that will have a significant impact, or if we're investing in a piece of infrastructure like a leisure centre that might have impact significantly on local areas. But a simple programme that's open for application probably won't be. So I think this is an area where officers need to apply some discretion when adding things onto the forward plan.
Would you just like to come back on that one?
Yeah, thanks. So it's not something I feel hugely strongly about, but it's just that, the point was, obviously, as you say, it's from the local authority, that sort of thing. But I just think when the CA is, 4 or 5 times the size, of the LA, whatever it is, then the 2 wards to me is potentially not a great many, and we could potentially find ourselves having some spend which is maybe a couple of 100,000, but something maybe not far off a leisure centre, which just happens to be spread across 2 wards or something like that, and then it probably becomes a key decision when it's not really that key. So just the thought, really.
Yeah, good point. Anyone else wishing? Councillor Haslam, sorry, you were on my list.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to I suppose I want to get into my helicopter. I think we're getting down into the weeds here, or before we've even thought about some of the principles. I know we thought about principles 2 years ago. So first of all, I get very excited about overview and scrutiny. I think governance is absolutely critical, because if you don't do governance, you will never deliver anything, or not what you intend anyway. So I see overview and scrutiny as part of the team. I see this as being a place where you can come and you will get constructive feedback. and that we will help you build and contribute, because some of the people around the room may well have expertise in areas. So, for example, I know nothing about cryogenics, but clearly somebody along here knows something. But I also chair Scrutiny Transport for the North, and I've got some people on there who know more about railways than the officers do. So it can really be helpful and beneficial. So I see overview and scrutiny as being a very positive thing. So there's a number of things I've observed, and these are just a couple of things that I would like to see. I would like us to be involved in what I'll call the pre-decision process. So where major strategies are being reviewed, and perhaps we could add some value. So, for example, at the last meeting I was at, there was a lot of papers presented where there was no measures. So we didn't know what success looked like. And we could actually point things out like that in a constructive way. And if we do it beforehand, it doesn't happen when we come back and you say, well, we've done all this last year, and we turn around and say, well, there's no measures. How good was it? So I think we can help that. And I think the scrutiny chair would also be able to help shape things of the forward plan for this meeting. And I think that's the other thing, that we need early access to the forward plan of the combined authority, so that we can be picking and selecting and saying, where can we help? And so within the pre-decision, major investments. So those are the things that really bother me at this point. One other question would be I don't know, do we actually have dedicated capacity, dedicated support for this, and how big is that capacity of this, as to how ambitious we can be as an overview and scrutiny? Those are things that I think we need to know, rather than talking about 100,000 or 50,000 right now. I think we need to be a bit up here. Maybe not totally helicopter, maybe just drone. Anyway, thank you very much, Chair.
Paul, did you want to come back on?
Yes, I'll come back on that and pushing it over the door. Oh, forgive me. I think agree with much of what you said there. Well, all of what you've said there, Councillor Hassan, pushing at an open door with most of that. I'm also a fan of pre-decision scrutiny, where it adds value to the process, and it makes decision makers' lives easier if you've had that discussion and you've taken on the boards of on board the views of members and the communities that they represent. I think James has, again, probably explained it in the previous item, where we've been at in the last couple of years, is delivering at pace. We get something in, we find out about it, it goes to the next meeting of the combined authority. It's just about fulfilled the 28-day notice period, and you haven't had enough time to get in a scrutiny committee or a mid-cycle briefing. What we are looking at now with the Mayor's team, and the Mayor is very keen on this, is that the forward plan is used as a 6-month, 12-month, 18-month document, looking much further ahead. As soon as a decision becomes an idea, it forms in an officer's head, it goes on the forward plan, and there's a chance for that to grow and develop, and for scrutiny to take a view in it. So I'm very supportive of that. I don't think it would be something that we could formalise in the Constitution as the key decision, and other deadlines are set out in legislation. But as a principle for the way that scrutiny operates, I'm quite happy to support that in any way that I can.
Okay. Councillor Hassan, do you want to come back on that? Are you happy with that? That's been taken on board, and
yeah, no, I'm very happy with what's taken on board. I am concerned that you don't want to put any principles into your constitution. I may have taken that out of context, but that's what it sounded like to me. And I think a constitution that doesn't have principles in it doesn't make sense to me. So, so if you would take that back, that would be fine.
Point taken. Thank you, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on to the aspect of call-in, what has the history been, writ call-in, over the last 2 years?
We haven't had any call-ins over the last 2 years, which I'm sure most people say is a very positive thing. There's been nothing to review. Members may have different views that we haven't been able to. And call-in is a balancing act, that you shouldn't be used maliciously or to hold up decision making, but it should be there to provide objective review of decisions if members feel that there are concerns about the way the decisions have been taken, which is why we have to have these mechanisms in place, albeit with appropriate safeguards to avoid it being misused. But saying that, I haven't had any correspondence or comments from members that there are particular decisions that are problematic. If there are, again, I'm quite happy to pick that up with individuals.
Thank you. If that is the case, it seems to me to have a low number of councillors requiring call-in is the right way forward.
Thank you. So Paul, the recommendation is the Overview Scrutiny are asked to consider and comment, and we've commented, and you can take those on board. And is there general affirmation that that is what we want to do? Councillors? Yes? Okay, so I think that we've given you our opinions, and I think you've taken all those on board of what we would like and what we want.
Yes, Chair, and picking up again, Councillor Haslam's point around the principles, I will commit to having a look at the overall scrutiny procedure rules in the abstract at the beginning to see if we could perhaps integrate some of the ambitions of overview and scrutiny, if that would be helpful to try and put that principle in place around pre-decision scrutiny.
So just before we close this item, Councillor Merritt, did you want to just come back on that? Sorry, I didn't see you. Sorry. Sorry?
Sorry, I did put my hand up earlier. Right, on section C, does need to have a bit of a relook at. This has clearly been lifted from somewhere else because it ensure the membership reflects the conurbation's diverse population, and there are a number of other things, inconsistent numbers for the quorum and other things. So there are some details in here that actually need sorting out fairly carefully.
Thanks very much.
I'll do a fuller list later.
Thank you.
Much fuller list, I can tell
Will.
you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, and I should make clear as well, Councillor Merritt's the chair of Audit and Governance Committee and the Constitution working. The detailed drafting will be going through those groups before approval, as well as the outcomes of this meeting today.
I think that's what I understood that
Yes.
it would go through. But just going back, Councillor Watson, I've been vice chair and for 2 years, and we've never had any call-ins or anything, but it has been very, very fast moving, and everyone's been really getting their things in order. So now we're sort of getting to that stage now where things are changing because we were so young and we didn't really have anything in place. So I think things may change over the next two years. So thank you. So is that okay? Helpful for you? Right, you've been very patient, members. Thank you very much. So we now just move on to the last item, which is item 9, which is the work programme. And it, as you can see, it's very, very heavy, and I'm mindful that our next meeting is June. So I just need to understand what you think about the work programme. And it has been mentioned that, you know, we don't meet often enough. We have Teams meetings, but are you in general happy with the work programme that we've set? As I say, I wasn't the chair when we set this, but I think that we've got 2 deadlines here. We've got, if you turn onto page 278, we've got a deadline for the 1st of May for housing, and we've got low carbon and net zero 1st of May. So I'm just conscious that to have any meaningful intervention, do we need to have another Teams meeting, or are you happy where we are with this? I just need some feedback from you, please, because as I say, that we've got a lot to do. We don't meet very often. We seem to be just behind the foot sometimes, and I think we just need to maybe change our strategy a little bit. So, Councillor Stewart.
So I wouldn't disagree. I mean, for me, it's about thinking how the world is a different place when we started 2 and a bit hours ago, and I don't think it is. We just get some very high level things in. We fire off a few questions, we talk about a few things, and nothing really changes. For me, under the work plan as is, there's all sorts of very interesting areas that we could look at, and I think we should look at. I'm not a big fan of the Teams meetings that we have as a concept. I think it should be a lot more public. Although I've tried to attend the Teams, and I view it as educating myself about an area rather than that's how we should make decisions or influence stuff. So to be specific, I would actually say we should be meeting monthly.
Okay, any more views? Yes, Derek? No? Thank you. Councillor Fisher?
I think we often find ourselves in the situation of looking back at criticising decisions that have already been made, scrutinising them. It's always better if you scrutinise the decision before it's made. And then people don't get into the position of having to defend a position they've already taken. So I would be very happy with monthly meetings. I think it's far more.
Or quite a few more task and finish groups, and or I think that would be definitely beneficial for some of these areas.
Well, I certainly think task and finish groups are really successful, and I think that we haven't, in my opinion, made use of those over the last 2 years. I don't like being on the back foot. I don't think it's good, and I don't think that's what really we're here to do. So I think that I need to have a think about this. If I'm going to probably take the lead for the next few months, just while the chair's not there, and maybe try to put some more meetings in. And I'm hearing some calls of monthly, but obviously it depends on, you know, the workloads and the availability and everything. So if you would leave that with me, because I think we need to just have a fresh look at this. Councillor Baston.
I think a lot of it is that we've been reactive rather than proactive. And if things come to us first, then we can address and feed into, it'll be a far better quality report that comes to us. And that may be just a rubber stamping report, but at least we have been proactive in shaping that report. Thanks, Chair.
No, thank you. And just from the chair, as vice chair, obviously the chair takes the lead, and it is very, very different from when we first started and we were new, and things have changed and councillors have changed. But I personally think that we don't meet enough, and I think that there could be ways of doing things much, much better. So if there's general affirmation for that, I think I need to go away and just have a think of how we can maybe make this happen. Well, and I know you don't want to hear this, but is there any chance that we can talk about this to try and move things forward? Or is there just no space in the diary to do anything?
Certainly, I'm happy to speak to you about it all and how we move it forward. Just in terms of the items that are highlighted on the work programme that are coming up relatively soon on there, I have had discussions with officers about those items and potentially doing something on Teams, just as to try and update members as best we can, and just trying to make the best we can, I suppose, of the situation. But completely understand all the concerns and things that have been raised.
So if I could just make a compromise, then I don't think we're going to get any more meetings really in before we have these 2 deadlines, which are the 1st of May, and we have had a Teams meeting, we have had the documents, and then I think going forward, we need to have a completely different strategy of how we're going to do this. There will be a new chair will have ideas, but I think personally, I think that we should be meeting monthly, because then we can be absolutely on it and know exactly what is happening. Councillor Merritt.
I'm happy to move that suggestion that we move to a monthly meeting cycle, probably from the next for the next year, council year.
Exactly.
And that we look to arrange a meeting before that's early enough to deal with the key items that are due at the Combined Authority on the 1st of May.
Okay, thank you. Now, Paul, is there any issues with that? Could you help us here?
Yeah, absolutely. I think on Will's behalf as well, before he starts trembling.
I know.
Just to explain in terms of the structure for the Combined Authority, that we do have dedicated support with Will, but it's only a fraction of his time. I wish we could get Will all the time, but Will also has work at North Yorkshire Council, who we get Will through a service level agreement, and we have limited other capacity. Now, I'm sure we can try and accommodate as many meetings as members would like. What we can't probably guarantee is that we would have a meeting like this in person, with webcasting and democratic services support to do it. But if we're looking at task and finish groups or Teams meetings, they're much easier for us to accommodate. It does mean we've got much more ready access to the officers within service areas as well. So it'd be helpful, Chair, as you suggested, if we could maybe have a chat around capacity and resource, just to make sure that we're able to meet our commitments.
Yes.
I'd hate to commit today and then not be able to deliver.
Just on, if I can come in on that point, because I appreciate that in order to facilitate that, some meetings will be on Teams, but those meetings are not public. Therefore, there needs to be an overlay of it should not be seen as a means of taking some subjects out of the public domain. That would really worry me.
Thank you very much. So I'm listening loud and clear. I think that moving forward, we need a new strategy. And I think that I need to go away and have some talks about having more resources for whoever wants to lead going forward. And then we may be able to meet much sooner, because then we can make business-like decisions rather than being on the back foot. Councillor Haslam.
Yeah, I alluded to this question earlier and about capacity, and it's quite clear we have diddly squat of a full-time employee as capacity. So in terms of Paul, if governance and overview and scrutiny is your thing, and we've said we want a monthly meeting, and you can see what the forward plan looks like, I can't see that it's beyond the wit of man or woman, before I get in bother, to work out what capacity you would need in order to be able to run that. And then perhaps we can go to the mayor or whoever and say, we need 3 wills or however many but I think the start point is, what's the capacity we need? Because we can ask for as many meetings as we want, but if you don't have the capacity, then, you know, the other technical term would be we're knackered. So and we're not able to do it. So I think the step in front is, let's look at the forward, or somebody could look at the forward plan and say, look, this is what's coming down the line. This is what we require overview and scrutiny to do.
Okay, so I'm going to wind this up now. So thank you, councillors. I have taken everything on board. I do feel from the chair that we need a new way ahead, do things differently, because 2 years is long enough now for us to get ourselves sorted and have, you know, meaningful meetings much sooner than quarterly. Because if this overview and scrutiny is going to be anything, and it wants to be not good, it wants to be excellent, we just need to be meeting more. I'll do my best. As I say, I'm only standing in at the moment. Thank you all very much. I'm going to close this meeting now at 2 minutes to 1. Thank you all very much.
What I'm saying is, where the middle was away. So.
Dear.